everybody. This is Greg Matthews. We are live from Stubbs. We are live at South by Southwest, and we are live in the JustAskGemalto Lounge. A lot of live in there. I'm here with my co-host, Aaron Strout from WCG, and we are pleased to welcome Dr. Joe Kvedar, who is with the Center for Connected Health at Partners Healthcare and is also a professor at a little institution we know as Harvard University.
I've heard of that college, I think.
Yeah.
They have a good basketball team, right? They're in the tournament for the first time in a while.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's actually sort of a new thing to have doctors coming to South by Southwest, and yet here you are. You were on a panel this morning.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about why you're here?
Well, healthcare has to change from the ground up. It's, the way we do it is broken, and institutionally you've got government, and then you've got large institutions, big hospitals like ours, and so can you guess whether they're going to be innovative or not? So
I heard the government is super innovative these days.
Yeah. So, they're all trying, and everyone means well, but we have to get consumers and patients involved and rebuild it from the ground up, and this is a perfect venue for that.
Excellent. So as you've been here, what sort of connections have you made that will help to further that cause of getting consumers, patients back into the system?
Well, just walking the floor, you see all kinds of interesting things here. And then I think the innovation industry is here all over the place. The venture folks are here. There's so many interesting new startups here. So it's really taking a pulse of what's going on and innovating in healthcare that frankly you don't see at other shows.
So let me ask you a question. This is probably like a 100,000-foot question, but you're Dr. Seuss, you can build the zoo, or you run the zoo. You could rebuild this from the ground up.
Someday it feels like a zoo, no.
Yeah, well, probably more often than not. South by Southwest definitely feels like a zoo all the time.
Yeah.
What would you do differently? What are like the 2 or 3 cornerstones of if you could redo it all, rather than having to sort of change the wheels on the airplane as it flies? How would you get started?
Well, number one, I'd by policy begin to educate and hold people accountable for their health, which we don't do now. We treat everyone as a victim. You've got sugar diabetes because maybe you ate an extra plate of pasta 10 years in a row, but you're a victim. So if we start educating people, as we did with smoking, what the dangers of some of the unhealthy behaviors are, and then again hold them accountable either through premium costs or other mechanisms, I think that would be a great start. The other thing is we really need to educate people about the technologies that are now available for self-care. That's our interest at the Center for Connected Health. We have all kinds of amazing tools that people can monitor their own health with now, whether they be activity monitors, blood pressure cuffs, weight scales, and they're all wirelessly enabled. They all hook into the cloud, and we can capture those data and use them as measurement tools to watch our health improve as we take on new healthy behaviors, keep our health top of mind, and grow healthier as a society as a result. So those are 2 ideas.
So I think that you touched on something really interesting, because there are so many devices, apps that are all about collecting some sort of health-related or biometric data. But the key is, as a consumer, knowing my numbers. There are all these know your numbers campaigns. If I know my numbers, 120/80 doesn't actually mean anything to me.
Sure.
So one of the things that you had talked about was building some models on top of that data that would actually be an enabler for a consumer or patient. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, what we're really talking about is the psychology of engagement. And let's face it, you're right, data alone is just data alone. And people make the mistake of thinking data is information or even actionable when it's just data. And God forbid we start streaming in all these readings and just plopping them in databases and not doing anything. So what we use in Connected Health are really 2 concepts. One is feedback loops. That is, we want to get that data in front of you almost near real time. An example might be today, I haven't walked that much. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I could get my step count on my mobile phone and encourage me to walk some more. We have a tool that does that. And so it's feedback loops, and then it's the emotional psychology on top of that. I, for instance, am very responsive to authoritative coaching, just my personality. Grew up in a household that heard that. Other people, all you need to do is expose their weight on Facebook, and that motivates them. So it's just different for everyone, and what we need to do is start to segment the population according to what motivational tools push their buttons, and then offer that to them as part of this package.
Yeah, I usually do a post a day telling everyone how fat I think Greg is, and that seems to motivate him pretty well.
He's quite slim.
Exactly.
Yeah,
No,
does the trick.
in all seriousness, though, you touched on something that I think we're seeing bleed more and more into places we never thought we would see them, and that is this gamification idea, right?
Yeah.
So there's a psychology, but there is that idea of like, can you start to encourage people by, I mean, that doesn't, like you said, you respond to authority. Are you seeing any of that?
Oh,
and is there
absolutely.
any good example that you can cite that has impressed you?
There are a number of companies that use games to encourage people to be healthier, contests and rewards. And they're doing a fine job. They either have apps or they have programs. No particular one stands out, as there are a number using social networking tools to do the same thing. And there's a number of folks using rewards and incentives. And then the fourth tool are these automated coaching algorithms. And the thing is, they all work for some people some of the time. But none of them works for everyone all the time. So if someone comes rushing in with an exciting 40% engagement, which is good compared to the industry, what about the other 60%? And there are people who didn't respond to that attitude.
Well, and I suppose over what period of time does that 40% stay engaged, to your point?
That's right. There's always a decay, and so if you can prevent decay, that's another really powerful measure of success.
So one of the things that we talk a lot about on this show is the use of social and digital media to achieve one end or another. I know that you blog on the Center for Connected Health site. Can you talk a little bit about why you do that? Who's the audience that you're reaching through that mechanism?
Sure. I blog for a couple of reasons. It was an experiment to start. For me, it's been gratifying to see the feedback. Everywhere I go, people congratulate me on the blog. They give me a lot of positive energy. And then there's the real insight that I had that it is indeed a social medium. If you just post and you don't reply to comments, people stop coming. It's just as much about them messaging you through that medium as it is about you giving your daily thoughts or whatever it is you do. And so I pay a lot of attention to comments. I pay attention to the relationships that develop on the blog, and that's helped a lot as well.
Excellent.
Building on that thought, one of the biggest issues and why I think more folks in the medical field, given how regulated it is, have a hard time with that, right? They think it's better to just avoid than to take that on. So what spurred you to say, you know what, I'm going to do it and I'm going to play by the rules, and what can others learn from you in terms of how you have managed to sort of navigate along that path?
Well, that's complicated, and I don't want to be flip about, we all need to change and doctors are too square and what have you. But the fact of the matter is we are a very top-down system in healthcare, and that hurts us. The doctor's at the top of the pinnacle. He or she calls the shots. It really isn't right. We need, again, more crowdsourcing, more patient involvement, more consumer involvement. And what we found at our center is that when we give patients and consumers the proper tools and insights to care for themselves, they do amazing things. They do far more than most doctors would ever predict they would do. And so that's really our exciting, I think, insight in the last several years, and how we believe that connected health can help solve the cost problem. Because when you check yourself in at the airport, when you pump your gas, you're avoiding someone else's human resources problem. If you can start to take more care of yourself, you'll be out of the high cost part of the system. You'll be healthier and happier, and the system will spend less money.
So I think as a final question in this part of the show, it's been sort of a theme of the last week, and that is security. Because one of the things that when you go digital, there is information that you no longer have absolute control over.
Sure.
Can you talk about some of the security and privacy issues that come into play when individuals start sharing data about their health?
So we are, on the one hand, rabid about security and privacy. We don't want to expose anybody's data to anyone they don't want it exposed to. And the good news is that's a technically solvable problem. Of course there are data breaches, but I always remind people that when we had paper records, there are data breaches too.
Right.
So we don't want to hold ourselves to a standard beyond which we came from. But I also think the flip side is that the more people are willing to share their health data in this world, the more powerful that becomes, both from an analytics perspective. And as I said, if you're willing to share your connected health data, there's going to be a group of people who care about you rallying around you to become your own personal health coach, move you forward. So I think it's better to be more open than not, but it's an individual's choice.
So we're going to shift to something a little less healthy, but very tasty, right? Maybe a little more exciting. And
In small, anything in small doses.
that's
right?
exactly right. Everything in moderation.
There you go.
So we live in one of the barbecue capitals of the world. Although in our little prep here, come to find out that I think you've spent some time down in was it Memphis or?
Well, I have a daughter who goes to school at Vanderbilt in
yeah.
Nashville, so I spent some time there. My mom grew up in southwestern Kentucky, so I'm familiar with barbecue from that area, and I have relatives in North Carolina, and I'm a fan of pulled pork, actually.
We can't fault you for that. I mean, we are in Texas, and I know we're
That's
about the
right.
beef and the brisket,
The brisket,
but
I know, yeah.
See, I'm a northern guy myself, and so I'm all about the pork barbecue. So, do you have a regional favorite? You know, you got the pulled pork, but what do you put on it?
Oh, just it comes with that lovely vinegary, spicy sauce.
Yeah.
That, you don't need to put much on it. Just slap it on a bun, and you're good to go, I think.
Exactly.
have you had a chance to get any barbecue while you've been in town here? Or?
I still got an evening left, so.
Well, you got to make
Very
sure you
good.
take good advantage of that.
Gosh, there are a
right.
dozen places within walking distance that do you right.
All right.
So another big part of not only this festival, but about Austin's identity is around music.
Music.
And are you a music fan?
I am.
And
I am.
do you get an opportunity to see live music? I know I assume that you must live in Cambridge or Boston or
I live near Boston.
thereabouts.
Yeah, we don't go to too much live music. I haven't been in a while, but a big fan of classic rock, of course, and.
Do you ever get to any of the Fenway shows? They've had some pretty good
Yeah,
shows there
I have
recently,
actually
yeah?
been to a couple of those. Yeah.
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 Which ones, if you don't mind me asking? Maybe Aerosmith or the Police or Bruce
Police,
Springsteen.
actually, yeah.
I went to that show as well. Yeah, that was
Amazing
fun.
stuff.
Aaron's a
Springsteen.
Boston guy. You can't drag him out of Fenway Park.
Well, we all love Fenway Park.
It is. I mean, even if you don't like the Red Sox, it's hard not to like.
It's a wonderful
Exactly.
stadium.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much.
It's
This
a
has been
pleasure. Great to
fantastic.
be with you.
We have been talking about electronic health with Dr. Joe Kvedar for the Center for Connected Health at Partners Healthcare, also an assistant professor and a professor at Harvard University.
Medical School.
Harvard Medical School. I almost got that just right.
So close.
I've also been here with my beloved co-host Aaron Strout from WCG. I'm Greg Matthews from WCG. We've been live from Gemalto. We'll see you next time.